So today we're going to talk about some sentence pattern review, so sentences that you've already learned in Latin, and in the next video what we're going to do is talk about some new kinds of patterns of sentences in English, and then we will transfer them to Latin. So make sure you have your chapter 15 student notes page printed out. You're going to fill this in as we go along. Make sure you keep it in your notes part of your notebook so that you can refer back to it as you need to. All right, so transitive sentences. A transitive sentence contains an action verb and a direct object, which, as you know how that is in English is direct object, and in Latin that's called the accusative. Now, the verb refers to the person or thing that is affected by the action of the verb, which is why it has to be an action verb. And transitive sentences never include linking verbs, and the linking verb that you know is the to be verb. So am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. So always an action verb. So if I said he sent a letter, what's the victim of being sent? Remember we talked about the accusative being the victim of the verb. What was sent? The letter was sent. And the king executed the traitor. What was executed? Not the king, but the traitor. So the traitor was the victim of being executed. Now, let's talk about linking verbs. A linking verb is a verb which connects a subject, and you know the subject in Latin is the nominative. So subject of the sentence to the rest of the sentence without expressing an action. And a linking verb is used to re-identify or describe the subject. So, as I said before, the to-be verbs are an example of linking verbs. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. And other linking verbs are often related to the five senses: appear, seem, smell, sound, taste. Now, in an intransitive sentence, an intransitive verb is one that does not contain a direct object, or in the Latin, or of course in Latin, accusative. In other words, it is not done to something or someone. An intransitive sentence can have an action verb or a linking verb that shows the relationship of the subject to the rest of the sentence. So the first one, he laughed uncontrollably. Laugh is an action verb, something that's done. But the sentence doesn't tell who or what was laughed at, so it's intransitive. This is not an accusative. Not an accusative. Now look at the next one. Emily was the first runner to finish the marathon. Was is a linking verb. Now, Emily didn't wased something, right? She didn't, there was nothing that the victim of being wased. Something was simply re-identified Emily as, so it renames her. It tells us, remember it's like an equal sign? It tells her, who was she? Emily was, who was she? The first runner to finish the marathon. It renames her, it identifies her, tells us a little bit more about her. There's no accusative or direct object in here, so it's an intransitive sentence. So you can find the accusative or direct object of the verb by reading the verb and then asking what or whom. If this question is not answerable, then you're probably dealing with an intransitive verb. All right, some verbs can be transitive and intransitive. So if I say, Shannon walks for miles, is walk being done to anything? No. Miles is not being walked. It's not doing anything. So as walks is not being done anything, this verb is intransitive, even though it's not a to be verb. So if I said Mel walks the dog for miles, this time, is something being walked? Is there a what or a whom or what is being walked? Yes. The dog is being walked. It has a direct object, therefore, it is transitive. Okay, so even though walks is an action verb, it can be transitive or intransitive. All right, let's take a look at special intransitives. And special intransitives are in Latin only. So this special intransitive sentence contains a verb that takes a dative object. We've talked about dative object. It behaves like a direct object. We don't have dative in the same sense in Latin, so it's instead of a direct object. Or, remember, accusative. Now, often you'll see the verb entry in the glossary followed by a plus dative, and that just tells you that when you put a direct object after that, you're going to put it in the dative form. Sometimes you'll see the preposition to in the English translation like you normally use in a dative construction, but not always. So if I said puella matri placet, so here's our verb placet. Placet means to please or to be pleasing to. So what you can say is you can translate it that way. The girl is pleasing to, there's the to afterwards, or the girl pleases her mother. It means exactly the same thing and both one is completely correct. All right, let's talk about passive sentences. The thing we learned last at the end of the year, remember the Or Zombies project? So passive sentences. Passive sentences are formed using a passive form of a verb, which we spent much of the last weeks, of course, as I said, in school learning. In a passive sentence, the subject, remember that, receives the action. Remember I told you could say, if there's a by in it, then if you can say by zombies after the verb, then you know that it's a passive sentence. So if I said, liber lectus est, the book has been read, and we have this passive form of the verb here. The book has been read. Now we don't have to say who it was read by, but we can say, of course, by zombies. And since it makes sense, if we add a by zombies, and here you've got a by right here phrase already, then we know it's passive. So epistula aduce scribabatur. So here we go, scribabatur. There we have our passive form of the verb. Do you remember ter? Yeah, we'll review it so you get practice at it. The letter was written, and then again, as I said, by the leader. So those are all the kinds of sentences that you learned last year. That's just a good review. Now, next video, be sure to watch this one before you come to class again. We're going to look at some new sentence patterns.